Part 3, Chamath, Oprah, and Elon. What I'm trying to do with this series on Chamath, Elon, and Oprah is kind of a live stream thinking. Gary Vaynerchuk used to have a podcast called The Daily V. I don't know if he still does it with a podcast, but it just showed his life so you can understand him better. And I think, that is a great step, but even a deeper step is to understand someone's thinking. Because if you just see someone's actions and someone's meetings, you can kind of get insight into them, but unless you really understand their mind and their thinking, then you might misinterpret why they say certain things, why they take certain meetings, why they make certain decisions. What I'm trying to do in this podcast generally, but in these Oprah, Elon, Chamath episodes specifically, is really explain my thinking. And as I work towards being in work relationships with Elon, Chamath, and Oprah, what my thinking process is that goes into it. Because I think that if you understand a person's thinking, like thoughts are things, as I've explained, and I think that it's important to understand that whole process of, beginning, middle, and end, how things develop. So I think that, one thing I'm doing today is I'm watching more videos of Chamath, because I think that, a lot of things are like unconscious processes. Like if you think about people in your own life and memories that you have of them, you remember certain events, you remember certain things that they said, certain facial expressions, and it just becomes like a grained organic in terms of the relationship that you have. And you develop a relationship with a person by understanding them. And as I watch more videos of Chamath, I start to understand like his expressions, his how he reacts to questions, both easy questions and difficult questions, the things that he emphasizes, the things that he minimizes. Chamath's not one to really avoid topics too much, but he really, focuses on some topics more than others. And I think all people do that. And you kind of get an understanding that way of priorities. I think that, Bob Proctor says that in order to be a good public speaker, you have to take the attention off yourself and focus it on the other person. Like when you're self-conscious, you can't really do a good speech. And I think that it's the same thing with a good podcast, and it's the same thing with a good business. And it's the same thing with a good partnership. Like if I want to work with Chamath, I have to understand like what is he all about? What's important to him, and what potential value do I bring? I'm always thinking about like anybody that I want to work with and that I do work with. What value do I bring? I mean, that is the key to business. And they call that product market fit. But it's also, culture fit. It's partnership fit. In life, it's relationship fit. It's marriage fit. It's parent-child fit. Everything has to fit. And fit isn't like a one-size-fits-all. It's like an evolving process over time. People grow this way, they grow that way, and then the relationship has to change, the culture evolves. So as I'm watching these videos of Chamath, just a few observations of things that I'm noticing. And a lot of this is kind of like unconscious. It's hard yet. I probably don't understand it well enough yet to put it into full language and terms, but I'm noticing that Chamath is trying to like, I think, be truthful. I think that he places a really high emphasis on truth, because I think like he says he spent a lot of his life lying or being evasive, and he explains why he did that. And he's relating truth a lot to fulfillment, that if all you care about is money, then you become a certain kind of person that's not necessarily going to make you happy. And I think he talks about like his poker, he talks about his kids, he talks about his partner, and he talks about how like being fulfilled and happy in those ways makes him a better person, a happier person, and allows him to really come back to his work. And I agree with that, because I think that, the type of person that you are, like Tony Robbins says that your state determines everything, that, if you're an angry person, then you bring your anger to different situations. It affects your business, it affects your relationships. Brendon Burchard talks about the same thing. He calls it framing. He says when you go through a door, before you go through a door, the door frame can be like a trigger, he says. Like you imagine yourself, like as I go through this door frame, door frame, what kind of person do I want to be? Like as I interact with this person, what do I want to accentuate? What kind of mood do I want to have? What kind of feeling do I want to have? And they call that priming also. That is very important to like prime yourself. I think that like if we just become reactive to situations, then that's why they say don't check your email first thing in the morning. Put yourself in a good mental state. And one thing I say with Chamath is it kind of like, even if you look at his face, he is calm, he is relaxed, and he's engaging. He's not engaging in terms of being like overly effusive, but he's engaging in terms of like listening to the question, personalizing it. Like he had an interview with CNBC with Scott. He kept not over excessively, but he on several occasions mentioned the interviewer's name. And I think he has an ability, which most successful people do, to have an EQ, to ask, like, to understand, like, that there's a question, but then there's like a question behind the question. You know, people sometimes ask a question, but there's different layers. It's kind of like an onion. Like sometimes people's questions behind the question, and I'm not talking about Scott in this situation, but it's kind of like, do you really believe what you're saying? Are you optimistic about the future? What are your values? What are your priorities? So sometimes there's a lot of questions that lie beneath the questions. And as I watch Chamath also, I get the sense that he is really trying to democratize. I think democratize is a big word. Like when you look at SoFi and you look at, I think it was Open Door, and you look at Virgin Galactic, like he's trying to democratize space. He's trying to democratize finance. He's really big on climate change. That's his top priority. I think he's trying to solve the world's biggest problems, but he's trying to do it in a way that kind of like democratizes things. And he talked about like 150 people ruling the world. He wants to get entry into that by providing value. Then he wants to help other people get entry to that, you know, so that they can basically have more influence and impact in the world. Like he talked about the Koch brothers, how they like kind of like propagated their worldview by, you know, their allocation of capital, and he wants to use his capital to promote like a different type of worldview. And he has like a partnership program where he wants to bring a lot of other people on board. I think what he wants to do, if I'm understanding him right, is he wants to, I don't think he necessarily wants everyone to have the same worldview as him, but I think he wants to be like alternative worldviews that are more populist, that are more democratized, and get those out in the world more. And he wants to accumulate capital to be able to do that.